Hey guys, today I'm here with Jeremy Schilling from Schillings and Silver. What's up?
Not much. Excited to be talking to you today.
So we've had a lot of experience. I mean, we live in the same area. We are both principals of our companies, and we do different things. And they're both actually related to people and property and things like that. We've worked across the state together.
We have.
From Polk to Duval to the Tri-County area. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. A lot of our viewers, what they ask me is a lot of questions related to insurance. They ask me about like outcomes. They ask me about property claim, or we do premise liability, and someone fell over there right now. You understand both sides, which I like that. You have experience on both sides, whether you're working with the insurance company or whether you're representing the insured. Are there any different similarities that you've been seeing as far as like claims settling or particular carriers, or what do you normally see on that?
Everything's different.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, like I was telling you earlier, that every insurance company I've dealt with has the same business model, which is to pay shareholders, not policyholders.
Yeah.
Right. So it's deny underpaid claims, hope that they don't complain. If they do, fish around and find for reasons to suppress the value of the claim. It's when you get into the specific carriers that you find out that each one have different personalities. Mm-hmm. Okay, so carrier A is if they deny a claim, it's a flat denial. You may have to go to a verdict to get a payment.
Okay.
Whereas carrier B on the other side, once you file the lawsuit, once you press back, they're more likely to find a resolution that makes sense for everyone. And it's everywhere along that spectrum, and it just depends on the carrier. And within that, things can change.
You've seen, like, for example, we've been in court together, and you see, oh, well, this particular attorney always works with this carrier, and this is very typical of them, or something like that.
And that falls within the personality.
Yeah, no, it's, I've seen attorneys on the other side, last minute, or they're disorganized, or they're very disruptive, or they like harass me as an expert, or things like that. So they're ultimately just trying to like play the game.
I mean, they have a job to do like anybody else.
Or they have a job to do, or their job is to delay, or whatever, right? Is that
delay,
kind of it?
deny, defend? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're perpetrating the business model within the personality of that specific carrier. And defense.
And your job is to bring that to the surface, meaning call them out on it. Hey, this is what you're clearly delaying things. I've seen you argue in front of the judge, and at the end of the case, and like, this is what Judge so and so said upstairs, and this and that, and so I don't know what that's called. I guess post-trial or whatever the guy's trying to determine. I'm only brought in for the particular, but
Yeah.
you're kind of arguing, you and Danny and your team, you're arguing that, and it's phenomenal. It's so cool.
There's a lot that goes into that. Obviously, when you're in front of a jury, you're not arguing.
Yeah.
So when the jury's not in the room, I mean, you have to argue everything: application of law, the jury instructions, the verdict form. The insurance company, for example, wants the verdict form to be complicated. Mm-hmm. That almost seemingly tricks the jury into finding for them. Where, me personally, a verdict form should say, did the carrier breach the policy, and if so, how much? If not, you lose. If so, there's a dollar figure at the bottom of the form. Straightforward, easy.
Like we're dads and we're talking to our kids, almost like
just
that.
make it easy for them. Why are you
overcomplicating
it? And it seems like in my opinion, they're overcomplicating it because I hate to say this, but they want to trick the jury into filling out a question wrong, mm-hmm. Or making it overcomplicated with the idea that it's going to create discord amongst the jury where they can't, come to an agreement, so they fine for the insurance company. Obviously, I'm not in jury deliberations, so
But are they looking like and almost all the time the insurance company's bringing outside counsel. The counsel's not inside the insurance company, right? They're hiring another firm to represent them, right?
So there are certain insurance companies that hire outside, but a lot of them have in-house teams. And typically what happens is it gets to a certain stage where a trial seems inevitable, and then they kick it to an outside firm to try the case. Not obviously a uniform rule, but that's kind of how it goes.
And are these, and again, like, are these attorneys, obviously, they're either looking to, like you said, delay and defend, and
I mean, the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure are there to protect the parties, to ensure the administration of the trial process, the litigation process, but oftentimes they're used to delay. There's motions for extension of time that can be perpetual.
Is there any languages in these policies that, it almost seems like when I read these policies or people call me with these policies, like we discussed one carrier and they only want to give like 5% of a continuous coverage and all this, are there, like, it's almost like, I know you can't write something that's against the law in a contract, and I know the property owner or the consumer has a right to choose for the carriers, but how could these carriers write some of these language in these policies? Is that dictated by the state, or?
It's dictated by the Florida Insurance Office, FLOIR.
The DFA?
Yeah, FLOIR is supposed to approve, FLOIR. FLOIR is supposed to approve language, protect the consumers from language that is potentially illusory or overly protecting against coverage. But
illusory means exactly what it sounds. I've never heard that term.
Illusory is something that, it's in there, but it's not.
Okay.
Right. It's a.
It's ambiguous.
It could be.
Yeah.
An illusory term would be something that provides for coverage and then simultaneously provides an exception that essentially renders it meaningless. So, policy language is becoming increasingly tighter. For example, when I got my start, they had just put in the mold limit, where everyone's now limiting mold to $10,000. And in the last 3 to 5 years, that's now happened to water damage, which is, we live in South Florida. We live in Florida. Almost every loss that occurs is going to involve, even a fire loss is going to involve water to put the fire out. So you have water, you have mold, and that could be subject to a $10,000 limit on each. So
it's not enough.
So you're buying a product that, if you're not careful in purchasing it, has extreme limitations to coverage.
And you and your organization, I like to say this because we're kind of like, with what we do, we're A to Z. Like, we can help you all the way to the end, whether it's like me qualifying the permit or working with the city and correcting the construction. You could go all the way to the end with litigation. Yeah. And not all these guys can't. That's what makes you different. And that's what I like, that's what I think is so cool, So most of these firms, from what I've seen, they're bringing of counsel or outside counsel out when they need to litigate. And that's almost like another, not to knock anybody, and everyone has their own practice and organization and limitations, but that's like another party. So now you have, like, am I thinking about this correctly? Now you have the adjuster, if the claim came from an adjuster, and the attorney who you chose to represent you in fighting the insurance company. And then if that attorney doesn't have it just seems so like stacked like that, if you will.
It depends on the business. Let's say you're a sole practitioner, being pulled away to Charlotte County to go try an hurricane claim.
You don't have those resources.
Well, if you step away from your business stops operating.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate to have a business partner, Aaron Silvers, who is going to stay back at the office and make sure that our business continues to move forward and that the attention is being provided to everyone we represent. So that allows me to go.
Where you put that team into place.
Yeah. Aaron and I are very similar, but extremely different with our skills. So he's, tongue in cheek, but like, he loves spreadsheets.
He's organizational, isn't he?
Yeah.
Not that you're disorganized, but he loves organizational and probably managing.
Yeah, my best skill is thinking on my feet and being in that setting where you got to give the room what it needs. If you're the type of person that goes in to a trial, a mediation, a deposition, and you're screaming and yelling at everybody, yet you're dealing with people that don't respond well to that, you're not going to get a good result. So you got to go into the room, assess the judge, the jury, and say, what does this room need today in this moment?
So these are different attorneys with different skill sets and different organizations and things like that. And what's amazing is when I work with your team and you call me in as an expert, your team knows everything. They know about, again, the property, they know about the client, they know about their particular situation, they know their needs and what they want, and I don't see that carried throughout the profession. So I just wanted to say it's really, really cool. I work with a very limited amount of people, as you know, but I see all the shit, all the real horrible things, you know? So the fact that you're able to synthesize that through the legal process and take that into what you do. What is and I know this goes back to like a business and growing up, but I know you're into like team sports or things like that. What experience before you got into law like kind of was the influence behind the organization that you have today?
I was a student athlete, 3 sports in high school, and then through college, including coaching a 5th year of baseball. And those are teams, you know, that have goals, that have different personalities and different jobs to do to get where you need to go. It's not dissimilar to a professional team.
So you're pivoting between seasons and people and...
Every organization, I don't care if it's a baseball team, a football team, running a realty office, running a law office, you have leadership, you have people that are in defined roles that should be echoing the personality of your leader. And if the goal is clear and the directives are clear and you find people that fit the necessary functions, then you're going to be successful.
Did you travel a lot, obviously, for collegiate sports?
I did, yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, you have to go to Polk County and you have to go to Bartow, and you're working on the fly. You're working in different places. You're working on your feet, like you said, and then you're going into different, you know, courtrooms and judges and areas of the state.
Yeah, I mean,
it's almost like you're each one of them is a game, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that go into that. There's coordination, scheduling travel, that all go into that overlap between college athletics and what I'm doing now. I mean, you know, now the bigger thing is when you're picking a jury, the demographics of that location are relevant, right? It's not a different team, but you're battling a bunch of different factors, including the demographics. So what does the expected juror want to hear in that, you know, Polk County versus something vastly different like Miami-Dade?
What is the jury pool going to look like? What is the
not
people?
Necessarily look like.
No, not physically look like.
What's going to appeal to them? You know, and it's you get feedback from your client as the process goes on. You learn about your client, and you can almost use your client, you know, to help understand what that demographic may need, what they're looking for, what they want to hear.
But you know how, I mean, what's amazing is also from experience, but you know how to go to different areas of the state where the demographics of the state are different, or different places, and give the jury that. Get that verdict, you know, and that's really, I'm shaking the table, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But that's really cool, you know, and I've seen you do that, and I talk to, you know, again, like kind of like you said before, not everyone's cut out for that type of, like, I almost consider you like the surgeon, if you will, and this guy sits in the office, you know, so you're on your feet, you're in high pressure situations where there's a lot on the table. You know?
I mean, it matters so much to the client. And look, sometimes you go in with preconceived notions while you're picking the jury. But then you're going through the process and you're seeing how they're reacting to certain things, whether it be the evidence or the personalities in the room. As an example, I kind of became more like wallpaper in a case I tried in Polk County where defense counsel was being very brash and certain allegations were being made against the homeowner. And I was watching the jury react uniformly with their body language, with their nonverbal communication, like, the job was being done for me by what turned out to be the incorrect course of conduct from the insurance company.
You let it play out.
I let it play out. I didn't, instead of.
And that told the jury that the insurance company's counsel was being overbearing or malicious, or they just weren't being appropriate, and that
they weren't buying their narrative.
And that was the main thing that contributed in the verdict? Or
well, no,
it was a show there? It was a
no, it was a covered loss.
No, I know it was a covered loss, but like, did that I mean, obviously that was a piece to the win.
Well,
a play in that.
Why I'm bringing that up is you go into you go into a county thinking a certain thing, and as you're picking the jury, things more. If you're talking to these people during voir dire, you're getting to know them. I know it's surface level, but you can really learn a lot, not only in their answers but in their nonverbal communication. For example, are they interested in talking to you? Are they sitting forward in their seat versus slouching? Do they want to be there, right? So you're learning. Now, I go first as the plaintiff attorney, right? So I like to think that most of the time my interactions are positive. The minute the insurance company goes up there, now you're learning even more.
Yeah.
Does their body language change from the way it was with you? And then as you get into the case, are they responding negatively to the way the insurance company is conducting themselves during the trial? A brief example is, we're not hiding anything. We don't have privilege logs. Everything we've created is there to be evidence. And they're objecting, and they're saying that's on the privilege log, and you can see the jury going, well, why can't I see that? What is in that document that is so harmful that it can't be part of the evidence?
I can kind of relate to that, because when I go to the city, or I meet with the building official, or you meet with the administration, and you, even throughout the 36 municipalities in one county, you can see the person that you need to convey a message to, what their body language is. Is their background, are they a builder? Or is their background an administrator? And sometimes, these guys come to the property, or I go to meet with them in the office, and, I pull my shirt out and pop my tummy out, and I'm like, hey guys, this is what we have to do, and I realize what kind of perspective that they're coming from, because they're the judge and the jury. So you're kind of I guess, parroting, and it's a lot of psychology behind that, and training behind that, and experience, and then implementation of the law. And it's a synthesis of everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I boil it down to, again, give the room what it needs in the moment, right? There's times you need to be a bull in a china shop. There's times you need to be wallpaper, and most of the time you're in between.
That's cool.
But I think the best attorneys, the best legal professionals, give the room what it wants in the moment.
And they know how to change gears, and they know how to.
And it can be on a moment's notice, So, and that's how, when I'm training younger lawyers, people in my office, it's a message that I'm constantly delivering, because it's a learned skill.
That's cool.
And you're not always right. Sometimes you go in and you rip someone's head off, and you find out after the fact that, they were there for different, they wanted to be a certain way. It didn't go that way. And, you have, I don't want to say a bad result, but let's say a mediation doesn't settle because they were really just looking to have a professional exchange, and you misread the situation.
Yeah, you couldn't land the plane, but I've seen you work with very difficult situations, disappointed with expectations, or uncooperative people, or you've taken over cases from other people, and you've then got the client the best outcome. So that's really cool.
It's always the goal. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That.
And kind of skipping to another subject, a lot of people ask us, and I don't know if we got to this, is that when I have a lot of people selling properties, and we speak to property owners all the time. If you have, for example, a personal injury case on a premise liability case, where someone falls on the property, or which is pending litigation, or you have other types of pending litigation where you have something to maybe gain from it, where you have an insurance claim, what happens when you convey the property, and who bears the liability, and who gets the pot of gold at the end, if there's something?
Well, the answer is very different if you're talking about a property claim versus a personal injury liability situation. Okay. So in the personal injury slip and fall, you can't sell the property and transfer the liability.
So that's why a lot of these condo associations, they get tied up, because no one wants to buy in there anymore because they have too much pending litigation. I've heard that.
I
They're
mean,
mismanaged. They have too many liabilities. They've left a lot of things. Contractors come in there, break pipes. They don't look at insurance, and they don't vet vendors and things like that. So I've heard from people, hey, this condo can't even get financing because it has too much pending litigation. The banks they don't want that. It's too much of a liability.
well, and you didn't mention this, but another thing is since Surfside, there's these assessments that are going on within condo buildings to make sure they're structurally sound. And personally, I would want to know if a condo was compliant, had passed the necessary tests, and there isn't a large special assessment coming. Now in the property.
That's a property claim and a personal injury.
I mean, it can be both. So, if you're the owner of a property, let's say it's a single family home, and someone slips and falls on a hazard in your property, selling the property does not extinguish the liability, right? It doesn't. Now,
does it transfer the liability?
No.
To the new owner? No.
No. Once the injury occurs, it's the owner's responsibility if they knew or should have known about the hazard. Now, in a property claim, you can transfer the benefits of the insurance to the buyer of the property, but that's typically not what happens. Typically, you're fixing the property to the extent where you can sell it. If you are doing that, make sure you're filling out accurately the seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
The biggest fundamental difference when you transfer real property with a pending claim is if you don't fix the damage before you transfer the property.
Disclose it.
Well, you're only entitled in most policies to the actual cash value instead of the replacement cost value. So the example I use is if you have a $1,000 TV on day one, by year 10 that TV is almost worthless. So
it's $352.
yeah, it's you're only getting the then value of the TV if you sell your property. Whereas if you make the repairs, you're still entitled to the $1,000 it's going to take to actually go out into the market and buy something that is equivalent.
So when the property conveys ownership, then at closing, there's some type of, I don't know if it's an exception on title but I'm just saying there's some documentation to the person that that's receiving the property, that there's litigation and what's going on at the closing table.
Yeah, on the standard seller's agreement, you have to disclose certain things.
Yeah.
Pending litigation, existing damage. You really should be, if you're selling the property, you really should be highlighting what you fixed during, what problems occurred but were fixed during the time you owned the property.
And you've helped property owners out a lot on sellers have lied on the seller's disclosure. Realtors don't use the seller's disclosure because it's optional. In some brokerages, they tell the agents you have to use it. So these are people who've done, which I get involved in the cleanup sometimes. These are sellers who've done substantial things to property, have failed to disclose things. Yeah. The realtors have made it worse. Or, for example, one person, and I tried to teach realtors and agents, and one person had told me, hey, not only do you have to disclose everything, but if your buyer has a question, you're best off recommending them to a resource like a home inspector, an engineer, a contractor to get that figured out. And kind of the second that you've done that, you've kind of passed liability, if you will, or mitigated some type of liability onto someone else. But a lot of these realtors, they're so focused on the sale and their commission and not the client relationship, they'll just say anything to get the deal done.
I mean, I'm sure there are people like that. I've dealt with people that do a good job, that listen to their client and understand that if it's done right, the property will still transfer, they'll be paid, but both parties will be protected.
Yeah.
So, I like to think that there are a lot of good real estate people
there are.
out there. And I've dealt with some in my purchase and sales.
No, but there's some people who, for example, they don't know how to navigate the situation, or they don't know how to. You can explain anything. You have to be able to educate, obviously, the property owner, get them accurate and reliable information, but you can, every property or every person is going to have deficiencies and existing conditions or whatever you want to call them. You just have to educate the person who's getting the property and make sure that everything's explained that's on the surface that you
Yeah, I mean-
could possibly know about? And also that you've inherited from other property owners, you might have gotten something, you know?
I mean, the number one and two things that I would do is demand a seller's disclosure
Yeah.
and don't make offers to buy real property without the inspection. I mean, you're just asking for problems.
So do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence, don't cut
and
corners
use
just to
your
get in the
seller's
property.
disclosure.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. I mean, look,
That mitigates a lot.
it mitigates a lot. It gives some information to the inspector. Hey,
A lot of these home inspectors too, they say on their home inspection reports that, you know, we deal with unpermitted code violations, illegal additions on property. They say that they're not responsible for that. So sometimes they say contact a contractor or an engineer or something. And then at that point, the realtor or the real estate professional has brought a person to the table who's a professional, who's recommended another professional. And then at that point, it's the buyer's decision whether they want to exercise the due diligence or do what they have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So those two things, so use a seller's disclosure and make sure you use, you have a lot of due diligence and.
I mean, look, what I would do personally is I would do those two things. I would go to the county property appraiser. I would make sure that as much information that's
records
available
match
to
up.
me. If permitting is available in public access, I'd want to go see what permits are pulled. You know, you can confirm the age of what the seller's telling you the age of the roof is. You know, and if you see something at the property and there's no permit for it, and you know it wasn't part of the original layout of the property, that you have an issue. So, you know, investigate. Make sure that what you're buying is what it is.
You mentioned something also very interesting, that you can have property and personal injury claim. For example, you're on this property right here. They don't have a stop sign. They have a stop bar. They don't have a stop sign. Someone runs the stop sign. Obviously, the property owner needs to keep up site lighting and maintenance and standards to mitigate these things. So the property owner now has a liability claim, and they might have a personal injury claim on them if those type of situations happen, or a slip and fall on an ice machine, you're in a hotel or something like that. Is it the same attorney who, well, I know the your insurance company is going to appoint you an attorney, but is it the same attorney who's representing on either side, whether it's the property owner or the injured, these things, or they're two separate things?
Well, there's going to be a defense attorney and a plaintiff attorney.
No, but on the personal, on the personal and the liability, two separate
Well,
ones.
so when you talk about personal injury, there's two factors. Number one is liability. Okay, so in 2023, there was tort reform in Florida. Part of that tort reform is if you are 51% or more at fault for your own injuries, you're barred from recovery. All right, so assuming that's not the case, you still need to establish liability.
And that litmus is done by a medical expert, that you're 51% or whatever, you know?
I mean, it's.
I'm not trying to belittle the language. I'm just saying, how is the language measurable?
Well, you might need a jury.
Oh, you need to make a jury to make that decision.
You might.
Okay.
That's a factual determination that ultimately would be potentially the jury. You know, where you hire experts, action and reconstruction. You might need to bring in someone that understands the code with regards to, like your example, does there need to be a stop sign there even though there's a stop bar? And then the jury is going to apportion fault. So the at-fault driver blew the stop sign, so he's going to have fault, but how much of that is mitigated by the fact that there wasn't proper signage? And so it could be that the person that was injured was 10% at fault, the at-fault driver was 80% at fault, and the property owner was 10% at fault.
And do people normally represent people in the injury? Like, say the insured has a claim against the property owner and, for liability and medical. Is that all one case?
Yeah,
or is that separate cases?
So liability is part of what goes into building a personal injury case. You know, so again,
once
you have
and
to
then,
establish
and then
liability.
once liability is established, then you can.
Well, then, you know, depending on the treatment, depending on future medical care, if there's a permanent injury, all these things go into what the value of
My
the
point
damages
is,
are.
there's a nexus between understanding property and personal injury and people.
Oh, for sure.
And so, like, that's comes together so much,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, from a legal perspective, yeah, for sure, 100%. And establishing, damages, it's obviously different from the human body than a property.
Yeah.
And
The property is not a living thing, but similar principles are applied. Properties can't be replaced. People are permanently injured,
Yeah,
different kind of things.
Look,
That's like what I know I didn't come up with this, grand idea, but I'm like, there's a huge nexus between that. There's a huge, because you're always going to have a person that's getting injured on a property or because of someone else's property, and that's how I know you, so it's pretty cool.
I mean, at the end of the day, people don't call attorneys on their best day. I just had a fire, a pipe break. We just survived a hurricane, and there's potentially catastrophic damage to the place that shelters them. It's extremely emotional, and then they go into the business model thinking that they're there to help them, and they find out that it's under deductible. But how's that possible? And so
how's your value? You're either you have a $5,000 deductible, and they say you have $3,876 in damage. And how are you evaluating that? Like, how's your field adjuster? How are you diminishing this?
Well, my point is on the human level.
Oh, on the human
So
level.
now it's 60 days since the event occurred, and let's say you don't have running water or a sink, or you're not in your home and you have children, you have
Loss
pets.
of use.
Well, I'm just talking about the human
The
factor.
human. I'm so focused on
the
property.
human
Okay.
factor of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bad
like
time in their life, right? It's the place that shelters them, the place that they feed their kids, that they return home every day.
And that's part
is
of the
extremely emotional. Just like if you get in an incident where you're physically incapacitated, it's emotional, it's personal.
And that's part of understanding that situation.
Exactly.
So that's how everything that the family's going through, the occupants
to.
going through.
I mean, just knowing that.
Because that's you have to know that to properly represent them. If you don't spend the time and the care and build the relationship, then you're not going to have all the pieces.
Exactly.
It's going to affect your outcome.
Well, I mean, your client may not trust you. And if you're going to do the absolute best job for each and every client, they have to trust that the things that you're doing and saying about the legal aspect of it are what they are. Telling somebody, hey, you may need to try this case to get a fair result. A big part of it is them saying, yes, and I trust that you're going to do the job for me, that you can get into the courtroom and give the room what it needs.
Do you think that, and again, I'm not trying to downplay anyone, but do you think that firms that are law firms that are able to try the cases like yours in-house and litigate are more likely to advise the client? It's kind of like you have an AC guy, and the AC guy, one of them specializes in repairs, the other one sells new ACs. You call the guy to your house, and the guy's like, one of the guys 100% of the time you can repair that, and the other guy's like, put $2,000 into this 18. So my point of asking you is, people, when you come to an organization and choose an organization, people are going to lean towards all their toolbox and the resources that they have. If they don't, the people who don't do the A to Z jobs, they might try to steer their client base from their experience and their discretion based off what they have, correct?
Yeah.
Am I thinking right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that one step further. The insurance company knows who will try cases and who won't.
Because they can
So
go on
the
to
value in the settlement is going to reflect that.
They can go on to LexisNexis or whatever.
No, they chart everything.
Search engine.
No, they don't need to do that. They chart everything internally. They know how many claims, they know average settlement, they know, have you tried a case to verdict, have you tried a case to verdict and won? They'd have all of that. They chart any law firm that has represented one of their policyholders, the information.
Is that why too? So they're charting things like the casino. They're charting
Yes.
things like statistics.
100%. So
they know, for example, all the insurance companies, all they ever ask me to do is prepare lists of cases that it's a running list, right? And so I'm talking to this engineer, and he, obviously the attorney wants a list, meaning he represents the property owner as an expert, real great guy, tons of experience, twice my age. And so he's like, he's like, I'm never going to prepare a list for these guys because they're going to chart it. I not chart it like you said, but why am I going to give away my whole list of experience so you guys can try and meddle around in it?
Well, it might be required, and there's multiple purposes for the list you're talking about.
They've always asked me for it, and I always say, okay, I have a running list, I have to update it, and I'm gonna get it, and I've been asked, but they've never followed up with it. They've never do you understand
Yeah.
what I'm...
I mean,
And maybe I was doing something completely wrong by not giving them the list, but again, I didn't have the updated list on my hand, which I didn't, and that's the honest truth, and they asked me for one within the past year, and then they never, for one reason or another, either the case got settled or the defense attorney working for the insurance just was very disorganized, or they were trying to rattle me a little bit,
Well, in those instances, you provided the list even though you didn't. When they ask you how often do you get hired by the insurance company
Yeah.
versus a policyholder, how many times have you testified, how many times have you testified at trial?
So you're charted.
My law firm is.
Your law firm's charted.
Yeah.
Your experts are they want to chart everything because they want to.
That depends on the insurance
No,
company.
but they want to mitigate. No, but that's very interesting. Statistically wise.
What I'm talking about is dollars.
No, dollars. I got it.
Yeah.
You want to know what firm got what amount of damages, the amount of legal expense that it took to get those damages. The main purpose to take home is that these guys know who's going to settle for a lower amount, and these guys know who are going to push the limits and who can push the limits.
Yeah, correct, exactly.
And for a particular case, it might be really necessary that you have someone else who's able to push those limits, who's the pit bull, who's the, could get it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest factor, again, is being the type of attorney that's willing to stand in front of a jury if that's
cool.
what's necessary and put a case on and win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and I'm sure they spend a lot of money, the insurance companies and their best practices behind recording and charting and statistically analyzing. And I mean, that's like what an actuary does. Like, am I going to give you insurance? What do you do as a profession? What do you do every day? But when obviously they have claims, they're going to look to mitigate.
So you mentioned the actuary and that process. The same company.
Like Ben Stiller, like in that movie, like when
Along Came Polly.
Yeah.
So just really briefly, if the same company, insurance company, is going to charge you a higher premium because you're X amount of feet from a fire hydrant, it would be ridiculous to think that at the back end of the process they're not charting what law firm is getting the best result.
So they're doing that on both. Of course, they're determining a premium.
Everywhere.
They're doing that in their valuation on a premium before they insure and during they insure and increases, and then they're also doing that on the other side. Are these like in-house or private firms that do this for them, or?
It could be both, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many factors. So, do you have a pool? Is there fencing?
Is there a
do you have a
trampoline?
trampoline?
Whatever. Yeah. Do you have an aggressive dog?
Closest fire department, closest police department.
Got it,
Fire
got it.
hydrant.
Got it.
What's the rate of claims
Theft.
in that theft? What are the rate of claims in that zip code? How old's your property? What pipes are in it?
That's
I
why,
mean, it
because
goes
if you're
on
in,
and on and on.
that's why if you're in like Riverbend area, like Broward and 95, that whole fishbowl that flooded, your car insurance is going up, woo, because of all that.
Well, I mean, look, how about going to get car insurance in Miami where there's such a volume of people?
Or Atlanta,
Or Polk County where there's just not as much. It's more
got
like
it.
highway driving, single lane.
same car, same Audi, same SUV, same insurance, same
And when you're
coverage.
when you're insuring a vehicle, you're insuring the possible property damage, but also the likelihood of causing a catastrophic injury to another human being. So
That's
all
awesome.
those things go into it. Then we're not even talking about application of deductibles, because a deductible is a risk shifting factor that can change the premium, obviously.
That's awesome, and knowing how these things work are instrumental to determining what coverage you need, what insurance company you should go with. And I know you don't want to. I know every day or a lot they post on the receivership and the ones going out of business and the one like, so you as a consumer can monitor these things, or can people call you and like be like, Jeremy, I'm buying a house. Do you recommend a carrier? Do you recommend us staying away from particular carriers?
For sure. And there's other factors. I spoke with an agent yesterday, and we were talking about, for this particular individual, don't just get a quote and look at the price. That is the biggest mistake people make. Why is that price $3,000 lower than price B? And the answer is always limits. 10,000 mold limit, which you can adjust. You can ask for a 25-50 limit, maybe not from that carrier, but a different carrier. Is there a 10K water cap? Look at the endorsements. That could come at like $350 a
it has nothing to. It might not even have anything to do with the carrier itself. Different carriers are adding on different riders or endorsements onto the addendums or whatever onto their policy.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I was just saying, you could have a significantly lower premium and realize that it's a 10K cap and the savings is hundreds, $200, $300, $400. But effectively, the number one cause of loss in Florida is a pipe break, and you're buying a product that only gives $10,000 worth of coverage to save hundreds of dollars. So you need to be looking at your deck page, the quote from the insurance company, and you need to ask, why is it the price it is? It's like anything else. You wouldn't go into a department store looking for a refrigerator and just buy the cheapest one. There's a reason it's the cheapest one.
Most people, and I've asked some people this question, they have a loss in their house or a loss on the street. They get injured. But first we'll do with the property. They call a plumber. They call to obviously to stop the bleeding on the property. They call a mitigator, a water mitigator, cleanup company, which we know many. They call, then maybe they call a public adjuster. Why don't they just call an attorney first? And the follow-up to that question is, what is a percentage based off what you're saying, based off your experience, that the adjusters are able to settle and they're not able to settle?
I would be flying blind on that. I don't know. Obviously, it would depend on the carrier. Public adjusters serve a purpose.
And we have a lot of we're advocates for public adjusters.
For sure.
And there are some, for example, claims where it's like taking a shotgun to kill an ant to hire an attorney, right? So it works both ways, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, look, and at the end of the day, whether you're a public adjuster or an attorney, the clients control the money. And what I mean by that is an ethical public adjuster, an ethical attorney determine how to build the case, okay? But once an offer comes in, I'm not responding to the adjuster. I'm saying I got to talk to my client. So now it's the client. Now all these subjective factors come into play. And they're like a fingerprint, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So you might have a family that has multiple kids, a dog, both parents are in their careers, or they have dispensable incomes where they don't need to wait for every last penny. Versus you might have someone that's just starting out, bought their house with their last cent, and they don't have a choice. If they don't get the claim fully paid, they're not going to be able to fix their property. So, and there's so many subjective factors, right? In a spouse, partnership in a home, one partner is typically more risk adverse and one partner is more oriented towards risk. So who has the louder voice? That's a subjective factor. I could go on and on. It just, every family dynamic is different. And that goes into whether a case settles. It goes into whether it proceeds to an attorney. If there's an offer on the table, even though it's less, do we want to hire an attorney knowing that it could take a long time to get the right resolution? Money now can be perceived as a better outcome.
Have insurance companies ever gotten caught like red-handed, like discriminating against certain, like kind of like the redlining thing with the mortgage, like looking at particular households and demographics? Have they ever got caught doing that? Or is there regulation against that?
I mean, of course, there's regulation.
Whether it's followed or ultimately, is there like a mortgage or real estate professional has fair housing? Do they have to? They can't discriminate against age, sex, the Civil Rights Act of all
How
of
do
the
you
different
prove that?
protected classes.
How do you prove that? And look,
I don't know, by a
at the-
spreadsheet, by getting an actuary on my side.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're just a claim number.
You're just a claim number.
I mean, I've worked for an insurance company. You're just a claim number.
Okay.
And the people that have been working there, especially ones with tenure,
Yeah.
they become desensitized to the human side of it. And part of the training,
You're like the dad on The Incredibles and the guys at the big.
yeah, I mean,
thing
part of the training, part of the process is to build in the result being desensitized to the human being. You know, that's when I was a defense attorney. I never shut off to the human side of it, which is why now I'm a consumer-oriented attorney.
That's why I
Right.
got out of the city, because they're like, this is ridiculous. Like, so it was a transition only if you're a business professional and you have that type of,
Yeah, I mean, one
spirit.
of the things, going back to your original question, is post-claims underwriting. So during the underwriting process, they're going to ask you these questions on the application. It's going to be very little follow-up. You provide WIN-MIT form, you provide, the pre-purchase inspection report sometimes, but there's not a lot of fishing around. And the reason for that is they want your premium. They want you to be a customer. Now move forward to the bad day, and how dare you submit a claim.
Yeah.
Now they want to know about your claims history. Now,
Yeah.
if they didn't previously get the pre-purchase inspection report, they want it. And so one of the things they're not supposed to do is go back and search for a reason that they shouldn't have provided the policy. But
Correct.
that does happen. And
They
that is something
refunded,
that-
they sent me a check 6 months, or right after I closed on my house, maybe 3 months. They sent me, I forgot if it's Edison or Florida Penn or whatever. They sent me a check refunding my premium held in escrow. They dropped me like three.
Well, they can, in their cancellation provision, they have 90 days to drop you. And that could be a legitimate reason. It
So
might
now
not be.
July comes around, I was given like a $7,900 check for whatever my premium was, and now I have to obviously shop around for that,
Yeah.
or give that money back to the
But that's built into the policy that they have a cancellation period.
And when I went, I don't travel very often, but I just travel throughout Florida, and we have clients throughout the state of Florida. When I go to Maryland or different states or areas of the country, obviously insurance is governed by the states.
Correct.
And I might not see all these personal injury or property claims signs. Why? I'm just saying, are there better states to live in that are more insurance friendly or less insurance friendly? And what is? I know we have natural disasters and everything, but where do you see our state fit into that picture?
I mean, for me personally, if you want the best weather in the country,
Here.
it comes at a risk of being in a peninsula that sticks out into the Gulf of America now,
Yeah.
and the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
going to have hurricanes. For me, I'll take that risk because
Didn't you
it's-
come from-
It's February 27th, and I'm sitting outside. I'm not sweating. I'm not cold.
And you came
that comes at a
from
risk.
Massachusetts,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Which,
So wherever you're at, your answer to that is wherever you're at, you're going to assume different risks, and
you can live in the Midwest and deal with tornadoes, or go to a place that has very low, like Montana has very low risk for a natural disaster, but you're in the middle of nowhere. Your closest neighbor may be 50 miles away.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for.
I want to know why, and we both do social media, but I want to know why the wildfires are coming up so much in my news feeds. Is it people who own property in Florida and California? Do they think I own some Beverly Hills mansion, or what's going on with the?
Well, I know the answer to that because through our marketing is the search engine that you use has an algorithm, and because you're searching property terms, insurance terms, the algorithm is going to give you feedback from other areas.
But they didn't unless there's a lot of people who own property in California and here, or transient, which we have actually seen a lot of people move to Texas and Florida and Tennessee from California. So look, I'm very grateful, like you said previously, to be here, because we're in the best place to do business, and we're very transient, but we're still in the best place to do business. So there's ups and downs, but I thought, again, I was just, I see on my stories on LinkedIn, or I just see the algorithms, and I don't know where that demographic is kind of coming in, because you can actually things that, you know, I help train realtors, and you work with a lot of adjusters and other attorneys. You can target obviously these ads to different preferences, maybe because I'm a construction professional, and I don't know.
In my opinion,
I don't know why they're coming. I just saw that this morning and this week before and the week before, and obviously they're going after very high value cases, right?
Well, I don't want to conflate marketing versus what's happening to you when you get a national insurance story on your feed. The search engine you're using wants you to read the articles that they're putting in front of you, because when you click the articles, you're getting ads that are paid for by
Correct.
by the people. So
whether it's Google or whether it's Facebook, it's coming on
Bing,
your news.
Yahoo, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, so marketing is a completely different monster. This is the search engine trying to get you to read their content so that you're looking at their advertisers. And you know, for me, the same thing happens. I get updates on Louisiana, California, Texas, New Jersey,
Yeah.
New York constantly, but that's because that's what I'm reading.
But you see these imposters coming into like different local markets when there's a catastrophe or thing, and then all of a sudden, like, they sponsor the Florida Panthers or Miami Heat and try and put that next to their logo on the billboard and try and establish what a local presence and local office. But for me, I mean, and for what I see for you, I mean, like, they can't offer the same boutique, if you will, services, and they're trying to jump into local markets and grab business, and they have bigger arms. I got that, but there's nothing local about them. They might have a regional presence or something like that, but like, these are people who are saying, I guess they're trying to flex or whatever, or build their power off saying, you know, we have a huge team, but you know very little about our local market, you know?
I mean, it depends.
Do you see that? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest law firm in the world markets themselves as being the biggest law firm in the world, and there's the certain consumer out there that.
But they're a referral. A lot of these people are just, and again, I come from a real estate area. There are realtors just in the referral business.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so there are people who concentrate on different things, like based off your skill set. One of them obviously is to just generate leads and refer business. The other people might be office administrative people or building the company people. And then the other people are the ones actually fucking doing the work. You know, and that really gets me, you know, because again, you can only sell a job so much. And every person you get involved, every time you introduce someone else into the factor, it's another piece of the pie. And ultimately, we want the insureds. We ultimately work for the client. We want them to get the best outcome. And I don't want to take fat where there's not fat, or, you know, you just want to operate like efficiently. So I try and give property owners, you know, good advice, work with local people, obviously work with people who have all the tools to get you to the finish line or get you the outcome that you want and the experience. And, you know, because they ask me all the time, you know, you kind of see these little teasers out there, you know?
I mean, for us, you know, a client that calls in on day one, first time into the firm, and if they speak with me, you know, they want to be able to speak with me throughout the process, and they can. And sure, they're dealing with our staff and the people that help me, but at the end of the day, there's a certain type of consumer that wants to call and say, I understand what you're telling me, but I want to hear it from Jeremy.
Yeah.
And so they get me.
Yeah.
And that's important to them.
Because they started with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when they read the reviews, it's my name on the firm, it's my name in the reviews. If it came from a prior client that's saying, Jeremy did this process for me, there's trust built before we even speak. And so,
and for me and you, like, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I mean, it's important, and that's how you build, you know,
and that's
word
how,
of mouth.
That's how also, like, again, like my children, we have children the same age. They look at the content, they look at the reviews, they're on social media, and they're like, you know, Dad helped this person. And it kind of influences and fosters the family and them. It's almost like a it's almost like a top-down thing. You're wearing it all the time. It's your ecosphere, you know?
Well, parenting is just another form of being a leader. What kind of leader do you want to be? Do you want to tell them what they should be doing, what their aspirations should be, how they should work hard, or should you just do it and let them be?
Or
an
show
example?
them. They
Yeah.
say show.
Be
show
an
them.
example. You know.
Yeah,
So it's how I parent, and that's how I run my business.
that's really cool. Well, it was a pleasure being here today with Jeremy from Schilling and Silvers. Thank you so much.
course,
We're
man.
always happy to work with you, have you, introduce you to our network of property owners, real estate professionals, and we slowly got, transition from real estate professionals, but now we're really working with property owners throughout the state of Florida. So we both have that in common, and we both have similar business practices and ways that we treat people and maintain relationships and give reliable and accurate information. So again, I thank you for coming out.
Glad
Thanks.
to be here. Thanks.
Good. Good, Chris? All right.